the integration of princely states. This is a topic which is fairly important for 12th standard students also, because it's the part of their first chapter, the challenges of nation building. And in that chapter also, the CBSE textbook has discussed the integration of Junagad, Hyderabad and Manipur. Uh, why this lecture is different today? Because of course I'll be talking about whatever is there in the book, but I will also talk something which is not there in the book. So that is why this lecture becomes more interesting. And I have not included many details, or I have not gone much into the historical text. So I have tried to maintain a balance so that it is helpful for the students of 12th standard, and it is also helpful for the journal audience also. So without wasting any further second, I'll begin. So this would be my today's point of discussions. So first I'll talk about the brief history. Then I will talk about the integration of Junagadh, Hyderabad and Manipur, and in the same order I'll talk. And before I'll start my discussion with Junagadh, I'll talk a bit about other princely states also who created trouble in joining India, because we are familiar with Junagadh, Hyderabad, Manipur uh, from our textbooks, but we are not aware of some of the other princely states who had some interesting stories to share in the history. So, this is, I have learned from my previous experiences that before I begin, I should tell you about the terms that I'll be using. So, first is the princely state. So, princely state is like an independent small state that existed in India. There were more than 500 princely states, and they were under the control of British, indirect control of British. And the second term that you will hear me talking, that is the subsidiary alliance. So it was a policy which was started by East India Company, and it was a kind of a agreement that they used to sign with the princely states, under which princely states were supposed to surrender most of their authority to Britain. Now, suzerainty is another term that I don't know if you are familiar with. It simply means the partial control. For example, Sikkim, before becoming the full-fledged state of India in 1972, Sikkim was under the suzerainty of India, means under the partial control, where they had some independent power and some power of Sikkim lied with India. Then standstill agreement. This word will also come again. Uh, while India was integrating princely states, so during that process we used to sign a standstill agreement. Now this agreement meant that whatever practices these princely states were following, India will follow those practices until the final agreement is signed. So it was like maintaining the status quo. So then you will hear something called instrument of accession. Now this was the legal document that princely states signed while joining the Indian Union. So this document was like terms and conditions. It was like an appointment letter, or you can say in today's time, which defined your contract with the Indian Union. And you will also hear a word called dominion. Uh, I'm not audible. Jitendra sir, can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yeah, you are audible, sir.
Okay, okay,
There is someone has a question, I think, raising the hand, Vicky Kumar.
okay,
So I
okay.
request everyone, we will have a session later. If any question
Yeah,
you do have,
we
then yeah, you can
we'll
ask later, no? After the
have
session.
a
Yeah.
small discussion after I finish. Don't worry, I haven't kept it for very long, just an half an hour discussion. So another word that you will hear me talking is the dominion. So dominion means the self-governing nations which were created under the British. So one was the dominion of India and another was the dominion of Pakistan. Then another important term that you will come across today is the plebiscite. Now, plebiscite or plebiscite, some people pronounce it as plebiscite or plebiscite. Now, it is a kind of a direct vote where people vote on a particular question of a policy. For example, whether a region should become independent, or whether a ruler should be there, or any kind of question would be there. So public basically vote in plebiscite. So in India, for example, like we go to vote to choose our representatives. Plebiscite is a kind of a vote where we go to answer a question. These are some of the terms. Now, going back a little bit in the history of British conquest of India, uh, if you look at the British expansion, it was characterized by the coexistence of two approaches. Now, the first approach was the policy of annexation. Sardar
I request everyone to keep your mic mute, please. Please
yeah.
keep your mic mute. Yeah.
If you look at the history of British expansion in India, it was characterized by the two approaches. The first approach or the policy was annexation. Now, in the annexation, it meant that British forcefully absorbed the Indian princely states and the other provinces which were existing. Now, the second policy was the policy of indirect rule, where British assumed the paramountcy. Paramountcy means the total control, and on the other side, British had provided some sort of internal autonomy to those princely states. So it was like an indirect rule. Now, the policy of annexation was abandoned by Britishers after 1857 because they felt that in order to rule this huge country or this huge area of India, they needed the support of princes. So they started applying the another policy, that was the indirect control, under which they signed a contract or a treaty with the rulers of princely state, and they said that you govern in whatever way you want to govern your subjects or your citizens. We have no problem, but on the other side, you need to accept that we are the sovereign. It means that British people were the sovereign, or British were their heads. So these were the two policies through which Britishers were capturing the Indian territories. And if you look at the map of India in 1947, it had two kind of territories. Now, the first being the territories which were under the direct control of British, and second being the territories which were not directly controlled by the Britishers, but they were under the control of princes. On the other hand, there were some other colonial enclaves also which were controlled by France. For example, we had Pondicherry, then other colonies also we had in terms of Daman and Diu, Goa, which were the colonies of Portugal. Now, there were many factors, which uh, which had come into play while we got independence. But the most important factor that created a problem, that was the 1947 Independent Act. Now, according to this act, these princely states were free either to join the dominion of India, or they could join the dominion of Pakistan. Now, on Indian side, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and the Secretary of Ministry of Home Affairs, VP Menon, played an instrumental role in convincing these princes of these princely states to join India. And on the other side, we had Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was working to convince other princely states to join the dominion of Pakistan. Uh, Before 1947, almost all the princely states had joined the instrument of accession, except few, and three of them that we are going to see today. And this map, if you see, you could see these were all the princely states that were existing in India. Hyderabad was one of the largest princely states, and you could see in this whole region of Gujarat there were more than 200 princely states. And let me tell you one fact, there were so many princely states which were just as small as a village. And even in Odisha, if you see, there were a lot of princely states in this particular area, which we call it Odisha in modern time. So there were some troubles, and we will see. Now, these were the two people or two taskmasters who were on the task of, integrating these princely states. And these are the two books. I will not advise you to read these books right now if you are in 12th standard, or purchase these books just for reading this particular topic. I think NCRT has enough content for this particular topic. Maybe if you are too interested, you can go through these books, because these books will tell you very interesting stories about the integration of princely states, and uh, you can refer to them somewhere in future, but not now. I will not advise reading these books right now. I mean, for your board purposes, you can read it for your journal interest. Okay, now there were three states or few states which were the initial troublemakers. Now, Travancore, if you see on the map on the screen, the left side, somebody is creating some noise. Okay, so if you see on the screen in the left side, so you have two princely states here, the princely state of Travancore and the princely state of Cochin. These were the two separate princely states, but before signing the instrument of accession, they merged together and they collectively had signed the instrument of accession with India. Travancore was the first princely state which said that we are not going to join India. Now, why is that so? I'll tell you some interesting stories from Travancore. Now, Travancore was a southern state. If you see, it borders the Arabian Sea on the left, and Travancore was ruled by, you can see on the screen, Prince Balram Verma, and the person who is there on the right is Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. He was the Diwan, like the Chief Minister of Travancore. He was the one who was responsible for taking all the decisions related to the administration of this particular princely state. Now, Travancore was aware of its strategic location, because the prince or the Diwan of Travancore, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, in 1946 itself, he declared his intention of forming an independent state of Travancore, and he said that the independent state of Travancore would be open to signing a treaty with Indian Union, but we will remain independent. Now, this particular fellow, why he was doing so? Because Travancore had discovered the uh, deposits of something called monazite. Now, monazite is a sand which gives you thorium, and thorium can be used by scientists in order to produce nuclear weapons or nuclear energy. So they wanted to exploit those thorium deposits, the princely state of Travancore, and they had secret ties with UK government also, who were supporting the idea of independent Travancore in a hope that they would get exclusive access to their minerals, that is the monazite, in which Travancore was rich. Okay, and this would Britain was of the opinion that if they get monazite from Travancore, this will give them an edge over other countries in nuclear arms race. And if you are aware of little bit history, it's a period of Cold War between US and USSR, and every country is running for nuclear weapons. Now, till July 1947, they were adamant. The princely state of Travancore was adamant on their position that they are not going to join Indian Union. They will remain independent. But ultimately, one incident changed the whole scenario. That was an assassination attempt on the Prime Minister or the Diwan, that was Sir C.P. Ramaswamy. He survived the assassination attempt, which was led by the Kerala Socialist Party. And on 30th July, after this assassination attempt in 1947, Travancore joined India along with Cochin and later became a state known as Kerala. So this was the first troublemaker who joined India. Now the second troublemaker was Jodhpur. Now Jodhpur also has a very interesting story. It was ruled by an young and an inexperienced king. His name was Hanwant Singh. Now there's a story that Muhammad Ali Jinnah called him for a meeting, and Jinnah gave him a blank sheet of paper and said that Maharaja Hanwant Singh, whatever your demands are, please write it on the paper. I will give you whatever you ask for, and in return, you should join Pakistan. And even Jinnah offered that I will give you free access to Karachi port, from where you can import your arms and you can maintain. I will give you military support also, and along with that, I will give you agrarian support in terms of agriculture. Now, on the other side, Patel and VP Menon knew that Jodhpur was a very big state, as you can see on the screen. Almost half of today's Rajasthan was Jodhpur, and it bordered Pakistan also. So this could put India's security in jeopardy in future. So Patel also started convincing, and the other princely states like Bikaner and Jaisalmer, they also helped the Maharaja of Jodhpur in convincing to join India. And ultimately, Patel assured the Maharaja that the Jodhpur would be connected to Gujarat region, that was the Kathiawar region, by railway, and India would help them with grains and with other supplies like arms and all. And finally, on 11th of August, Maharaja Hanwant Singh, the king of Jodhpur, signed the instrument of accession, and this is how the state of Jodhpur was integrated into India. Now comes the third troublemaker, that is Bhopal. Now, Bhopal, the last ruler of Bhopal that you see on the picture is Hamidullah Khan Nawab. Now, he was a very good friend of this Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and he opposed the Congress rule in India, and he had made his intention extremely clear that he wanted to remain independent, and he wrote a letter to Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India. And in his letter, he wrote that he has a desire to remain independent or join Pakistan. And ultimately, Mountbatten wrote a staunch reply that no ruler could run away from the dominion which is closest to him. So even if you look at the map of Bhopal, which is there on your screen, this was the princely state. The red color that you see, it was the princely state of Bhopal, and it was nowhere possible for Bhopal either to join India or remain, either to join Pakistan or remain independent, because it was surrounded by Indian land from all four sides. So ultimately, Bhopal, by July 1947, the ruler of Bhopal was aware that a large number of princes from the central India had already acceded to India, and ultimately he decided to join India. Now we come to another princely state that is the focus of our discussion today, and that is Junagad. Now, this is the map. If you can see, Junagad is this area of Gujarat, as you can see on the map. And let me zoom this area. That is the area called Gondal. I hope you all can see there is the word that is written Gondal and Manavdar. Now this Gondal is the princely state from where the forefathers of Muhammad Ali Jinnah belonged, and Jinnah had some kind of emotional connection also to this place. Now, this particular area of Junagad, as you can see on the map also, it was ruled by Babi dynasty. Now, Babi dynasty was started by a noble who was a noble of a Mughal, and after the decline of Mughal, he declared his independence from Mughals and started governing this area of Junagad. It was a very large area, and during 17th, 18th and 19th century, it also fell under the Marathas for some time. Now, I would like to draw your attention to this particular fellow which is there on your screen. His name was Khan Rasool Khanji, Mahabat Khan Rasool Khanji. He was the last prince, and I am drawing this reference from this particular book that is written by Germany Das, and this particular book tells the story of all the princely states. If you are interested, you can read. Now, this particular Raja was famous for his lavish lifestyle. He used to spend all his tax revenues on uh, his lavish expenses, and he was particularly famous for his pet dogs. He owned a more than 800 pet dogs, and interestingly, before independence, he spent 3 lakh rupees in one of the events where he organized a marriage for his dog, and he invited a lot of princes and British journals also. So he was that kind of a person, of a personality you can gauge, and he was not so concerned about the public opinion. Now, what happened? He was in Europe in May 1947, and he declared that in Europe, he declared that the princely state of Junagad, which is not connected to Pakistan by land, but it is connected to Pakistan by sea, we are joining or we are acceding to Pakistan. Now, he completely ignored the Mountbatten views that no princely state can join the dominion if it's not in the contiguity or if it's not joined by the dominion by land. So he decided to join. Now, Junagad was a very big state. It had certain smaller princely states under its control, and there were few princely states which reacted to this decision that he was living in Europe, and he declared suddenly that we are acceding to Pakistan. And surprisingly, Muhammad Ali Jinnah also accepted his accession to Pakistan. Now, there were two states, Mangrol and Babriawad. So these two princely states reacted and they said that we are acceding to India. We don't want Junagadh to join Pakistan because nowhere we are connected to Pakistan, and majority of the population here is Hindu, and this would defy the whole idea of two nation theory. So then what happened? India sent its military force to control the princely states which were surrounding the Junagadh. And India had cut off all their supplies of fuel, post, etc. And India occupied the small princely states of Mangrol and Babriawad, which had acceded to India. And Indian troops had surrounded Junagadh from all four sides, and they had severed their air links, their postal links, no food supply, nothing. So India had cut all the supplies of Junagadh. Now, Junagadh's Diwan, interestingly, I don't know if you are aware of this or not. Junagadh's Diwan was Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto. Now, Shah Nawaz Bhutto is the grandfather of the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, that is the famous Lady Bhutto, uh, and his son was also a very famous leader, the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was assassinated by his own journal. Now, coming back, when the Nawab of Junagad said that we are receding to India, people started revolting against him, and this Diwan, the Diwan of Junagad, Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto, he decided to write a letter to the commissioner of the Rajkot, Mr. Butch. You can see on the screen also that letter that I have taken from this website called junagadinfo.com. And in this letter, he said that I am not able to control the administration. So you should come in on the behalf of Indian government, and you should take the control of this particular state of Junagad. Now, after this invitation, Indian government moved in. The only good thing that India did, they said that we will conduct a plebiscite here. We will ask people what they want to do, whether they want to join India or they want to join the dominion of Pakistan. Ultimately, a plebiscite was conducted, and this is how Junagadh was integrated to India through a plebiscite. So this is a small story of Junagadh, which is very interesting, and the most interesting is of course this Nawab of Junagadh who led a lavish life. And if you are more interested in reading about the lives of Nawab, so you can read this book called Maharaja, written by Germany Das, Diwan Germany Das. He talks about not only the Raja of Junagadh, but in this particular book, he has also talked about the lives of other princes of princely states in India. Now we come to our second point of discussion or second topic, that is the princely state, one of the largest princely states in India before independence. And if you look at the history, again, this princely state of Hyderabad or Kingdom of Hyderabad was uh, was established by a Mughal noble. Okay, and he was appointed as a Subedar. The first Nizam was Kamaruddin in 1713, and he was given this title Nizam. And ultimately in 1724, he declared his independence from the Mughal kingdom, and he started ruling Hyderabad independently. And by 1798, Hyderabad was the first state to join the British under their policy of subsidiary alliance. Now, coming to the modern Hyderabad, this photo that you see on the left is Patel, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and it's the last Nizam, that Mir Usman Ali, on the side of Sardar Patel. Now it was very large state. He was one of the richest person in the world, going by his fortunes during that time. And he said that I have a desire to remain independent, or I want to join India. And he was requested by Patel, and other negotiators were also sent by Indian government and even by Britishers, but he did not succumb to any of those pressures, and he said that I want to remain independent. And he also went into secret ties with Britain, and at the same time with Pakistan also, for arranging arms and ammunition in case if things escalate. And he was supplied arms and ammunition by Pakistan. Now there was one more person who played an instrumental role, which I forgot to mention. His name was uh, Qasim Rizvi. Now he was a main person, an extremely communal person who was influencing Nizam in not joining India. Rather, he was influencing Nizam that we should join Pakistan. And he was the one who played an extremely bad role, and he mobilized the army of Razakars. And when Nizam had declared that Hyderabad will not join India, so the farmers, the peasants, and the communists started a movement in Hyderabad. And looking at that, he wanted to suppress the Nizam, and that Qasim Rizvi wanted to suppress that movement, and they called in their own fighters. They were known as Razakars, in order to suppress those peasant movement and the movement led by the communists. Now, what happened ultimately? Indian government decided that uh, we need to move in, and by June 1948, Lord Mountbatten had also resigned as the last viceroy of India, and ultimately India decided that we need to act militarily now by September 1948. And one more reason India was not acting militarily during this time was India had signed a standstill agreement. If you remember, in the initial pages of my presentation, I talked about something called a standstill agreement. Now, standstill agreement means whatever is existing, we will follow it. We will maintain the status quo until you sign, or until the princely state signed the instrument of accession. So that was also into place, but things took the different turn when Razakars came in from Nizam side, and ultimately India decided that it should act militarily. And in 5 days, from September 13 to September 18, this whole Operation Polo lasted, and Indian Army took the full control of the state, and ultimately, through military action, this Nizam was I mean, the state of princely state of Hyderabad was integrated, and ultimately Nizam was also made the governor of the state of Hyderabad and he was given an award, or what you call as princely privy purse. Some of the students might be aware of this fact that these princes were given some sort of pension, and they were allowed to keep their property, and they were given certain other concessions also, and those concessions were known as privy purse. So this is how the state of Hyderabad was integrated. Now, Manipur is the third focus of our discussion. Uh, Manipur was an independent kingdom. Northeast is also in news these days because of the clashes which are going on between Assam and Mizoram. So, apart from Manipur and Tripura, all the states were part of Assam, and rest of the states except these two, Manipur and Tripura, they were carved out of Assam. Manipur existed as an independent Methi kingdom, and during the British, it was known as the state of Kanglipek since 1980, since 1891, and it was ruled by Ningthauja dynasty for more than 1,000 years. And Raja Bodha Chandra was the last ruler of Manipur who signed the instrument of accession with India. Now, the journal information that is available to us is this, that you can see on your screen, that before I mean, this is also there in NCRT textbook also, that before the independence in 1947, Maharaja was forced to sign the instrument of accession with India on the assurance that Manipur would be granted some sort of autonomy. And until under the public pressure, later on Maharaja had conducted elections in 1948, and state became the constitutional monarchy, because there was monarchy also, and there was the legislative assembly. And Manipur became the first state in India to hold the elections. And then there were differences between people in Manipur's legislative assembly whether they should join India or not. So this is one story, but this is one side of the story. The other side of the story is this. Now, when Manipur was there as an independent kingdom, lot of rebellions had already taken place in Manipur in order to throw Britishers away and get their independence back. I will not go into those rebellions, but I'll tell you that from 1946 onwards, also when India was nearing towards its independence, there were a lot of other activities which wanted Manipur to remain independent and restore its past glory. Now, this name that you see on the screen, this Hijam Irabot that I have highlighted. Now, he was a communist leader of Manipur and he was instrumental in mobilizing people in order to garner the momentum for Manipur's independence. Now, Irabot, along with the another person, Longjam Bimol, now they formed a political party with the name called Praja Sangh in 1946. Now, what was their agenda? Their agenda was that they wanted an independent Manipur with its own parliament and its own constitution, and they should have a own cabinet. Now, they also wanted to demolish the monarchy that was existing, and they were of the opinion, the Praja Sangh party was of the opinion that representatives of people should be there who should govern the state and on the socialistic pattern of the society. Now, there was another section of people who did not like this idea. They wanted that Manipur should merge with India, and they formed a political party that was known as Manipur Congress. Now, Manipur Congress has no link with Indian National Congress. It was a completely independent party, and the only objective of Manipur Congress was to counter the views of Hijaman Irabot. Okay, and their whole movement of independent Manipur, they wanted to counter. Now, ultimately, what happened? The Constitution of Manipur was framed in 1947, okay, by a constitutional making body, which was led by its president, the president of Manipur State Darbar, and under this, under the Manipur Constitution Act of 1947, elections were held in Manipur in 1948 because the general opinion was that the Raja was responsible for conducting the elections. But this is the other side of the story that we don't get to hear, that Manipur had its own constitution in 1947 under which they conducted its first election. Now, Manipur Congress, the another rival party of Praja Sangh, they also started mobilizing people and they started a movement to merge Manipur with India in order to counter the movement of Praja Sangh. Now, ultimately, what happened? There were negotiations between Indian government and Manipur's Raja and Manipur's representatives. Now, the governor of Assam state played an instrumental role during that time. Even the Maharaja Bodha Chandra also somehow was opposed to this idea of merger of Manipur with India, and for some time also he was placed under house arrest in Guwahati. He was called for a meeting and he was placed under house arrest, and ultimately he succumbed to the pressure of India, and he signed the final merger agreement in September 49 without consulting their elected people, and this is how the princely state of Manipur was integrated. And Manipur, uh, Manipur's dissatisfaction we can still feel. Manipur became a state with lot of insurgency after their merger, and still now we have the Armed Force Special Security Act, which is applicable in Manipur, and we can still feel that pain uh, of 1949 in the hearts of people of Manipur. So this is a small story of Manipur, and I think I have done justice with the time. Sir had provided me the time of 40 minutes, so it's 45. I have taken 4 minutes extra. So now if you have any questions, you can please ask me.
If you have
So,
any question, you can ask now. Any student, any teacher have any question, you may ask.
and if any teacher is there who require this PPT for their students, they can message me. I will mail this PPT to them. If they want to utilize this PPT, I will mail it to them. They can message me on their number. No questions?
Sir, can you please give us your number or email ID
Yeah,
so
it's
that we
there
can keep?
on the screen.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
So
So
if
very nicely explained. Actually, you
thank
have covered the topic very well, and I think all the students have understood as well.
I hope so. I feel that I have done some justice with these topics. The only thing I feel that I'm not able to see most of the students because they keep their cameras off. And now we are all habitual of this. And last few PPTs also, if any teacher has attended any of those sessions, if you need those PPTs for your students, please feel free to ask for them. I will send you.
The videos of last previous lectures are also there on the YouTube channel. If you want to watch, you can watch it there. I'll share the link later.
Sure, sure, sure.
Any comment? If you do not have any question, anything you want to say, any comment or anything,
Any feedback so
any
that we
feedback?
can improve, or any feedback on my way of presenting, or anything you did not like, I'm open to the critiques also because
Sir,
I
it was
can.
very informative. Thank you, sir.
Uh, very appreciate your
Thank,
efforts,
thank
and
you,
the topic was very well explained and covered.
thank you,
Even the
ma'am.
minutest details were looked into.
Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you very much for all that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay,
Good
then.
evening, Mr.
Thank.
Ashish. Good evening, Mr. Ashish. This is Rohini.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
Mr. Ashish, it was a very well explained topic. I
Thank you
really
so much.
liked it. May I request you one thing?
Yes,
Could
ma'am.
you please arrange a session on Kashmir?
Ma'am, I actually it was in my mind, but I feel for Kashmir we would require somebody who is more expert, because I feel I am not expert in Kashmir. Otherwise, I would have included in today's topic itself.
Okay.
Because I will try to find somebody who can talk about Kashmir, and
Yes,
it's very difficult to find somebody who talks about Kashmir in unbiased way, because
absolutely.
when you
Yes.
talk about Kashmir, either you are this side, either you are on left or you are right,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult to be neutral because there are so many stories of Kashmir. Though I have read 4 books on Kashmir, but still I feel that I am not competent enough to talk about Kashmir. So I will try to find somebody in my
Uh,
circle, and I'm
Yes.
sure there
And
must.
one
Yes,
more request, Mr. Ashish. If you, I'll send a mail to you on this address.
yes,
If you
ma'am.
could send a list of books, readings, must readings for history students.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. For
I would
history
like to buy
graduates,
such books for my school library.
sure, ma'am.
So, if you could.
I have a
Thank you
small
so much.
library at my home, so I'll make the list and I'll send you all those books.
Please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
So, sir,
okay.
next, I forgot to inform you. So, next session, we'll continue this series of Independence Day series, and next session we will take on those unknown freedom fighters, women freedom fighters only, which are buried under the graveyard of history. So, we'll talk about them, and we'll talk about their role in Indian freedom struggle. because when we talk about Indian freedom fighters, it is either Gandhi, Ambedkar, or Jhansi Ki Rani, and maximum Vijay Lakshmi Pandit or Aruna Asaf Ali. People do not go beyond these freedom fighters, especially when it comes to women. So in our next session, we'll talk about the freedom fighters, women freedom fighters, who are unknown and who played an instrumental role in, in this whole freedom struggle. And because of them, we actually could gain this independence. So next session, we'll be talking about those unknown women freedom fighters, and it will be dedicated to all those hardworking women in our lives, be it our mother, our wives, our daughters, or our friends.
Okay, then thank you so much, Ashish sir, for
Thank
such
you.
a informative session.
Thank you.
And